Okay, so we're recording now. So welcome to the attendees to the Clinical Psychology Club, and thank you so much to our two trainees from the University of Manchester doctoral course, Sarmini and Ayuktha. Am I pronouncing that even right?
Call me Ashna.
Ashna.
Yeah, that's easier.
It's always worth checking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ashna's going to pop a presentation up on the screen, and Ashna and Sarmini are going to share this time to talk to you about their journey and the course. And also, at the end of that, you'll have an opportunity to ask your own questions as well. So when we do get to that point, it would definitely be better if you could pop your cameras on. Do feel free to put things in the chat as well, and our trainees will give you a shout out and answer those questions as well. So, Ashna, over to you.
Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. We didn't discuss who's going to start first.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm happy to if you'd like. Oh, if you'd like to go, I'm happy.
no, you go ahead, Samri.
So hi everyone. As Lou's mentioned, we're sort of the trainees on the DCLIN sort of program. I'm a third year trainee and Ashna is a first year trainee. The course is for 3 years. So I'm in my last year and Ashna's in her first year. So we're gonna this slide is really just we've got a few slides, but it's just to really go through sort of like our journeys to getting on the like DCLIN. And also I think we've got a slide on just like how you'd apply. And we'd also just talk about what our experiences are on the course and just like and also the application process as well, I think. So yeah, and do you want to go on to the next slide?
Yep. So this is my slide. So this is my journey. So I'm Ashna. I'm a first year trainee in the DCLIN program in Manchester. So I'm an Indian. Though I didn't grow up in India, I grew up in Dubai. So I started my psychology journey in 2017 when I started my undergrad BSc in psychology honors in Dubai in a Heriot Watt University, which was a Scottish university. So completed my degrees, my undergrad right during COVID 2020. And hence I took a year gap between my undergrad and then my master's. So during the year gap, you would see that I did an internship here at 3 months in Dubai. So that was more of a wellness clinic. So I wasn't actually working with clients. I was just talking with the clinical psychologist, the psychiatrist, and the other staff members there and kind of doing some role plays, things like that. Following that, in 2021, early 2021, I went to India to do another internship in India in a private psychiatric hospital as an associate psychologist. So I think that was when I got my first proper clinical experience as such, or first hands-on experience working with clients. So in that 6 months, I did a lot of assessments, initial assessments, very few therapy sessions. I did kind of CBT informed work, a bit of mindfulness, but those were limited just because of how mental health is perceived in India and the stigma around it, and how it's a bit more medical model. People prefer medications over therapy for various reasons. So yeah, so it was mostly just assessments. And I think that I consider that was my biggest learning point, and that kind of played a huge role on being able to get into things afterwards. So in 2021, September time, I moved to the UK, did my master's in applied clinical psychology in Bath. Following that, I was lucky to get a role immediately after finishing my master's degree. So did an assistant psychologist role in East of England for around 22 months or so. And in 2023 is when I applied for the doctorate. And yeah, I was lucky in that I got on to it in my first try, and then yeah, started my doctorate journey in 2020, mid 2024. So it's a very brief experience. This is my brief experience, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer as we go along later on. Is that okay? Yeah, thanks. I'll move on to next slide.
Yeah, so this is my sort of journey to being on the decline. My journey sort of started in 2016, I think, and I was trying to work that out as Ashna was speaking. But it started in 2016 when I started my undergrad at University of East Anglia in Norwich. So I did my undergrad in the UK, and I graduated in 2019. While I was in my undergrad, I also worked as a research assistant for, I think it was like a year and a half, part-time while on the while doing the undergrad, which I think really helped as well in my application because they do look for research backgrounds as well, over and above the like dissertation that you might do when you're on your undergrad. And then after that, I sort of, because I think it was probably because of like visa issues as well, because I remember in 2019, they didn't have the graduate visa that they have now. So because of that, I had to move back to Singapore, and I was looking for assistant psychologist jobs in Singapore, because that's where I'm from. I'm not sure whether I mentioned that earlier on, but I am Singaporean. But yeah, so I moved back to Singapore, and I was looking for jobs in psychology, but I couldn't really find anything. And this was also during the time that COVID happened, so it was a lot of like disruptions and everything, which was when I thought I'd do law school as well. But I think I ended up not doing law school because then I realized that I really, really was passionate about clinical psychology, and that actually helped me with my application again because I added that into my like sort of like reason for why I wanted to get on the course and why I wanted to pursue this line of career as well. While I was at law school as well, I had applied and was working as an assistant psychologist in a private company in Singapore. And this was owned by a British clinical psychologist who trained in the UK for about, and she worked in the UK, in the NHS for about 20 years. So she had a lot of experience of the NHS, and even the way that she structured the clinic in Singapore was sort of based off NHS sort of principles and things like that as well. And there were a lot of people in the clinic that were from like the UK or Australia. So it was a very sort of like broad experience and sort of interaction with different psychologists from different places as well. My sort of work that I did as an assistant psych there was like, I worked with a lot of kids and also helped out with some cases with adults as well. But it was mostly with kids that I worked with just because it was more like easier for them to sort of like, it was easier for me to work with kids, and there was a lot more experience that I gained from working with kids. Besides the client work that I did, I also did a few sort of like organizational admin roles, which also helped with sort of what you do as an AP as well. And also ran like a hotline, a 24-hour hotline for like companies to like for employees to call in with mental health sort of difficulties or problems. So it was a wide range of experience that I got at this one place, which I think is rare to happen, and it doesn't tend to happen, I think, in the UK necessarily, because a lot of the services are very like focused to like adults, children, or like different specialist services and things like that. So yeah, it's a bit different in Singapore, and it might be different in the different countries that you guys are from as well. But I think it's just like trying to find a way to sort of make that like your strength as well in your application. So then in 2021, I applied for the DCLIN, and I'm not sure what the stats are with sort of international applications, but I got on my first application round. The people in the UK, like they do say that it takes longer. Some people have tried like 5 times before they got on. So there is a big difference, and I'm not sure what the like stats are on that. So yeah, I got lucky maybe, and I got on for the first time. So yeah, then I started my decline in 2022, and then yeah, I've just been on the course till now. So yeah, that's my journey. Um Shall I just carry on with this and then you can go on, Ashna? Yeah. So then I guess some of the general experiences with sort of like the decline and be before and after that would be that one of the first things was like moving countries. I think like for me, it felt sort of like it didn't feel like a big shift for me because I was already in the UK. I had done my bachelor's in the UK, so then I didn't feel like it was a big shift or a cultural shift for me. And I've been very aware, like like for me personally, I've been around the UK and I've been to the UK multiple times before, so I'm not it wasn't big of a culture shock. What was different was that undergrad and the declin experience is a very different experience. Undergrad feels more like in the UK, it's more like everyone's there in the uni to sort of be in undergrad. Like they're there to sort of go out and have fun and things like that. But the declin, it is kind of like a job for everyone else on the course, and it's a smaller cohort. I've got 41 people on the course. So, and all of them have their own families, some of them have kids. Some of them might have moved here, but they've moved with their partners as well. So it's a very different sort of life stage that you're at, but also just like friendship groups are also different in that sense. But that's not to say that you can't find friends on the course. You can, it's just, I think it's a lot harder as well. And also like, I think it is a different vibe from like the undergrad experience. So that was a bit of a shock for me because that's what I thought, oh, it's going to be the same as like undergrad. Like I'm going to have my group of friends and everything will be sort of like, we'll all be doing the same things all the time. And that's not really the case. So yeah, that's the sort of difference, the stark difference. The other thing that I'm only sort of now realizing, and I didn't really clock into in my first and second years, would be the not being paid. So I'm sort of self-funded on this course. And a lot of like all the other local trainees are paid. So that's why it's like a job for them to be on the course, to do the placements and the research and everything. But for me, I am paying to be on placement, I'm paying to do the research, I'm paying to be in teaching. And it's a very different sort of, I guess like just like general life experience that you have when you're on the course and you're paying for it because like they're obligated to be there. I have a choice, even though I make the choice to be there all the time. So yeah, it's a bit different when it comes to like social things as well, even though I've tried to not let that sort of like stop me from doing certain things, but that can be, I have like friends, other international, like other Singaporean friends that are on the decline in other places as well. And that's something that they've sort of been upset by or impacted by because there can be a bit of like a discrimination or like sometimes people can be like, oh yeah, it's payday and that's something that's quite fun and you might miss out on the experience because I guess like developmentally as well, like you are gonna be like everyone else around you is getting paid and then you're not getting paid and then it's like just very different. So yeah, that's just sort of like the general experiences. And if you guys have any questions, you guys can ask them now, or if you want to save them for the end, that's also fine. So yeah. Ashna, do you want to take over and talk about your experiences?
Yes, thank you. So you would notice that mine and Sarmeen's experiences are a bit different. I'm a first year trainee, so I'm still in the whole process of, creating those very close friendships and developing social circles here. So moving country in itself was definitely difficult for me because I've always, I've always known myself as an introvert person and I've always been there like that. So moving to the country, even for my master's, was really hard, but I got lucky because I was in dorms with other international students and I knew someone from my undergrad also come in. So made it easier. And then the whole moving from Bath to east of England for my work and then to Manchester for the doctorate. It was hard and it is still hard to make those social circles and especially because like Sarmeen said, there are people in the course who are in different stages of their life. A lot of them have families, a lot of them have partners, a lot of them live far away as well, and some of them live in Manchester, but they have their families, so they grew up here, so they know people here. So it can become a bit hard to make social circles, or at least those close group of friends like you would expect in your undergrad and masters. But that doesn't mean you don't make it. You don't make friends. It just takes a bit more time and a bit more effort from your side to do that. So that's why I said quite early on, it can feel a bit isolating because in my cohort, I'm the only international student. So it was a bit isolating early on with people not knowing what my experience are, how my experiences in this program as well, like, I'm not being paid, which we'll come back to later on. So I'm not being paid. So, but also like I don't have any family in the UK. So how it can feel quite isolating early on, and people don't realize that. So it required a lot of me disclosing a bit about myself and my, life, my background, things like that, in order to kind of help people realize, because a lot of them don't realize that, as international students, we don't get paid for our job, for the course. We still have the same restrictions as they do, whatever that, in terms of, attendance, all of that, whatever restrictions they have and needs they have, we have the same things, but we're just a bit different, you could say, as such. So it can feel a bit isolating early on, but it gets better over time. Just, give yourself time to do that and let it let it take its course. And like Sarmeen said, payday, it is quite hard when you hear everyone around you but just being like, oh, it's the 26th, oh, I'm getting paid, I'm going to spend it on, I don't know, XYZ, and you're just sitting there and I'm like, well, I wish I was paid, because I would like to also. So it's not that I'm stopping myself from doing things, but I'm quite consciously aware of my financial situations and what I need to consider that other people might not have to consider because they are getting paid, and I'm relying on, support from family and everyone else to do that. So it does it does have make you a bit more conscious of how you spend, how you do things, and what you do as well. But like someone said, I don't stop myself from doing anything. So I still go out, things like that, but I'm just conscious of how much I'm spending compared to my peers. And that can sometimes be a bit like, oh, it can leave you feeling a bit isolating, a bit like, oh gosh, why is this experience for me like this? And also, so luckily I haven't struggled with this, and my cohort's great. I really enjoy my cohort and everyone in it, but I've heard of some of my peers in other universities and saying sometimes it can be really hard because people are just like, why are you not grabbing a drink, or why are you not ordering food, or why are you not ordering this, that? So sometimes but it doesn't mean that, it's a bad thing or anything of that sort. But there is those little bits and bobs that come up here and there once in a while as an international student that some local students might not experience, or and the vice versa, they have certain experiences that we don't. Again, this is just our experience. That doesn't mean that that's how your experience is going to be. You might have a great life, I'm sure you will. So it's just, yeah, take it with a pinch of salt and don't like fully base your future on what we are saying, if that makes sense. Uh, I think following that, I think this is the application process. Shall I go with this, Charmaine?
Yeah, if
Yeah.
I can just chip in whenever you want, if that.
Yes, please. Thank you. So since I applied in 2023, I don't the process might be similar in 2024 if I remember rightly. So your application deadlines usually are somewhere towards mid to late November, and mine was so late November. But you do have an early application slot as well, sometime in October if you want to do it, and I think it saves you some 20% or so, whatever fees that you have to pay. So during that application, you have the application forms to fill. In via clearinghouse, depending on the universities. Some universities would ask for a separate form, like when I was applying, Birmingham and King's College London asked for separate forms that we had to do through their portal, and the deadlines were different for that. I think Birmingham was in December and King's was in March. But I know in 2024, Birmingham isn't offering place for international students. So, and yeah, so that's there. You also submit both your references by early December, so if a week or two after your applications deadlines. So following that, you sit with the whole uncertainty of what's going to happen, what's the outcome of my applications until March, when you'll start receiving emails about either, the interviews, either invites for interviews, or some universities have questionnaires that you would, or exams that you have to do before you get on to the interview. So I know Manchester has Uh, I know who else had it.
Manchester, Lancashire, and I want to say Liverpool, but maybe it's not. I know it's
Oh,
three universities that do it together.
yeah, so but yeah, you're right. Lancaster, Liverpool, and I think Manchester do what was it called?
Oh gosh.
So it
Stop.
wasn't a stats exam, just to clear. It's not a
Oh yeah.
research-based exam. It was more of a deductive reasoning, I think.
Yeah, it's the deductive reasoning, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so that was what we were given. But again, conscious of the fact that Lancaster and Liverpool didn't take international students in 24 or in 23. So I've left those two, but I know only Manchester has. I did it for Manchester, and Exeter has one as well, or at least they started in 2023. They had but that was more of a personality questionnaire, or it looked like a personality questionnaire. Do you like to be the center of attention kind of questionnaires? So once in Feb, March, you get the results either for the interview or for the for the shortlist exams or tests, and then March to May is where the interviews are. Some universities do it earlier. So during my time when I was applying, UEA, so University of East Anglia, and Manchester did it quite earlier, whereas King's, Birmingham, and the other ones did towards like May, so towards late April, mid-May. That was the time that they did it. And then by from May onwards is when you will start hearing back about what's happened with the interviews. Either you're put on reserve list or you don't get on. And once this process starts in June or so, for me it was on June 6th or June 7th, I remember very vividly, that you have to decide what if you want to accept the application, or sorry, if you want to accept the offer that's been given. And once you make that decision, if you also if say you have been given two places, offered two places, if you choose one, they withdraw your application from the other places as well. So it's completely kind of like taken out of the choice. So usually I would say people, if you have interviewed for say two places or so, just wait until both the results are out to make the decision. And they usually should be out at least a week or two before your deadline to decide when you want which offer you want to pick. And then yeah, following on from that, you start your whole CAS applications, get your CAS, start your visa, start all the other process that you would have to do to, yeah, get onto the doctorate. Anything, am I missing something, Sarmeen?
Oh, I just wanted to add that you do apply from the clearinghouse website, and the application to the sort of declins and everything. All the programs are similar to the local sort of like applications. Kings and Birmingham have a different sort of application because they do it directly through the uni. So you'd have to go to their individual websites to sort of apply. And on top of that, I've noticed, and even now from hearing what Ashna said as well, that they are reducing the universities that offer international sports. So I think when I was applying, and this was in 2021, it was like they had 11 universities that were offering, and I think when I looked a couple years back, it went down to 7. So now I think it's even much less now. And I'm not sure what the reason for it is, but yeah, it's just to keep that in mind as well. So yeah, the options are going to be lesser, I think, as the years go on as well. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
can't think of it. Yeah.
Sorry, the other things to add, you're right in that when I applied, there were only seven universities. So
Mhm.
King's, UCL, University of East Anglia, Birmingham, Manchester, Exeter, and Hertfordshire. And they all only, so other than the universities in London, the others only like took in one or two international students. So you can, if you want to see 2023's, admission, I don't know what you call that, but you want to see the percentage of how many applied and how many actually got the place. It's available on clearing website, but I would suggest don't do that because it can be really nerve-wracking. I did that mistake and I was just like, well, I'm not getting on this year. I have to go back to Dubai because my graduate visa was ending and things like that. So that's there. The other one was application, like Sarmin said, application on clearinghouse is the same for us and for local students. The only thing that I had to do extra was I had one extra question, which was something around um, what is your understanding of being or working as a clinical psychologist in NHS? I think that was, so I had one additional question clearing out that the local students didn't have. Um, and what else? I was going to say something else as well, and I completely forgot to apologize for that. But yeah, that's so everyone has different experience. I know in 2024, there are only 6 universities that do give spots, but again, the number of spots are also unfortunately quite low. And something Sarmin mentioned that, me and Sharmin, I don't know, we were lucky or what it was, we got on our first try, but that I've spoken to a few other international students on like there are certain clinical psychology forums and international clinical psychology forums, kind of things like that. And that's not always the case. I know quite a few people who had to do 2 or 3 tries to get in. So I think it all varies based on how you do your applications, how you do your interviews, things like that. So there is no right route, and there is no certain route that, yes, you would get on in this year. Um, but yeah, I think we have to try our best and hope for the best as well. Anything else before we move on?
No, I can't think of anything else to add to that, actually. Yeah.
No? Okay.
But if you guys have any questions, well, yeah, if you guys have any questions, yeah, we're happy to sort of talk further on some of the things that we might have mentioned, or even just like prompt us on some things that we might have forgotten to mention as well. So yeah.
We've got any questions from the students that are here?
I do have a question. Actually, I have 2 questions, if that's fine. Firstly, of course, with the financial thing, as international students, we're going to be self-funded or maybe take a loan from somewhere. And we don't have a payday. So are you allowed to do other part-time jobs while you're working? Do you guys support yourself financially in other ways to sort of maybe get you through the month?
Yeah, well, Ashley, you can answer, and then I mean, I'll answer, and then if you want to answer and add on to it, I don't know. Our experience again, each experience is going to be very, very different. I'm not sure whether were allowed officially to have a part-time job on the side. But equally, I would not know how to fit a part-time job within the curriculum of the decline. It is a very full-on course, and I'm not sure what people's awareness are about the course. It is like you do placements about like 3 to 4 days a week, and then you're doing research and you're also doing teachings at the same time. So to juggle all three of that plus a part-time job, I honestly I wouldn't be able to do that. So I personally have had to rely on my family and my like family to help me with my like funding and just finances month to month and everything as well. And some of my savings from sort of like my AP roles, but AP roles never pay enough. So there isn't much that you can sort of rely on as well. But that's my experience. I don't know whether Ashley yours is any different, but yeah.
No, so mine's also very similar. Because so I know that I'm on a student visa, and student visa usually allow 20 hours or so work.
Yeah.
But so that's what I know, and I'm assuming because you're on student visa and that's the rule there, that shouldn't be an issue within when you're even doing this course. But like Sarmin said, I know myself. I know that I was going to struggle with juggling a job while also having to do this because this is a full-time job. 3 days a week you are in clinics or in hospitals, you know, providing therapy, group work, whatever it is. So it's a full-on job, including having to do all the research that you have to do, attend lectures. So it can be time consuming, but it's not that you can't do it. It's just up to you if you feel you have the capacity to work part-time while also doing this course, but also making sure that you have time for yourself. And I know it's not easy. Like, again, I'm lucky as well that my family are able to kind of support me through this, and also because they have given me they've told me strictly to not go for a job, just focus on this and get it over with. So, but I know that that circumstances does not work for everyone in that sense. So I think it's up to you. From my idea, I don't think there should be a barrier because your visa says you can do it 20 hours a week, but it's your choice to make if you feel you can manage it while doing the course, but also taking care of yourself because it's not going to be a very emotionally easy course, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point to echo as well. Like, I think self-care is something that the course will tell you about as well, but it's something that you really need to implement for yourself as well because it is a demanding course and there is a lot that you deal with. If you're working with clients and everything, it is gonna sort of you do need to look after yourself. Otherwise it is gonna affect your sort of like patient work and everything as well. But yeah, if you're able to find the time within that to have self-care and do all the things that the course is expecting you to do, as well as get a part-time job, then I don't see anything else that's stopping you. But yeah, I can't, I personally can't do it. So
Can I
yeah,
come in as well at that point? I wouldn't advise it. It's absolutely life-consuming, the doctorate,
yeah,
I'd say. And you have to spend so much of your time introspecting as well and managing what that brings up. And yeah, it would be incredibly difficult to do that. I've got a related question before I move back to our students that have come, which is around I mean, the payday thing must be incredibly frustrating, and I have to admit I hadn't really thought about that. But in a related question, so there's a payday because those students are being supported by a local trust, aren't they? The Greater Manchester Mental Health Trust. But alongside being an employee of that trust, you get a lot of perks, or at least you have things in place to support you in other ways as well. So you have an employee counselling service, you have occupational health, you have a certain number of holidays, you've got, lots of things put in place because it's an employment contract. What is in place for you guys, if anything? And if not, how do you work around that?
So I think Ashna and I have emailed about this actually, but yeah, so everything that the local trainees are required and everything that like leave, sick leave, all the sort of like add-ons, like sort of like occupational health, DAS, is that what it's called? I think it's
Yeah.
called there's and even like when you're on placement and the GMMH trust and all of that, we will have access to. It's just that we have I think we have an honorary contract with
Right.
GMMH, which just means that we apply, everything else applies to us. But it's just with the payday thing, it's like one of those things where like I had a sort of a period of time where it was tough for me in second year, and I was talking about it with my clinical tutor, and she was like, "Oh, can you take a break? Like, maybe like, you need to take a break." And I was like, that is logically, like, it's just logistically not possible because where am I going to get the money to take this break? Like, how am I going to go on a holiday with, like, I'm not going to ask my parents, like, yeah, I need to take a break. Like, can you spare me more cash? That's not going to be something, that's not a conversation that's going to happen. Um, and I can say for now, like, it's been 3 years, I've not been on a holiday. So I'm waiting to like graduate for me to go on a holiday. So there is these things that you sort of like hold back on, and like it is that difference that you really notice when it comes to like holidays and summers when everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go travel Europe and things like that. But then you just can't do that. And with leave, we do like, because we're international students, we also want to go back home. Like I don't, my like sort of family is in Singapore, and I want to go home, and we don't have the usual curriculum of like summers and winter terms and stuff like that like you have in masters and undergrad. So I have to take my sort of annual leave days to go home to Singapore. And again, it's going to be like you're going to have to work it out somehow, but you can do it realistically. It's just that just means that you've lesser time to go on like actual holidays, because I don't see going home as a holiday, even though a lot of the local trainees will be like, oh yeah, you've been to like Singapore, that's like so fun. I'm like, yeah, but that's home. Like that's not a holiday. Like I'm going home, that's a different thing. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think Sarmeen is right in that we to my knowledge, I haven't accessed any yet, but to my knowledge, we get similar benefits, at least like, occupational health, counseling, things like that from the trust. But we also are entitled for that through the university as well, because we are technically sponsored by the university, the sense. So I know I've had certain conversations with my clinical tutor as well, and there are certain available things that are there for us as international students, some extra support from what I've heard, but I haven't accessed any, so I'm not sure. But in terms of leave, so we also have that same criteria of 29 days as such, but ours is a bit more flexible because we're not employed, like fully employed by the trust, the NHS trust. We are flexible. So what I was told is that I don't have to stick to the 29 days and I don't have to like justify why I want to carry over my leftover leave to the next financial year, because local students have to justify and when they're going to take their next break, when are they going to take those extra leaves, things like that. Well, as an international student, I was told that I don't need to do that. The only thing that we would be considered or we would be looked at is if you're fulfilling the university requirements. So GMMH does, or the trust, NHS trust, does not have any requirements from us, from their side in terms of how many days I need to work or things like that. It's the university that would have like 75% attendance on placements, 4 days teaching days, things like that. So yeah, and I was told that as because again, as international students and the fact that we have to travel quite far to even go home, they would be a bit more flexible with us and give us longer breaks. Like I know in December I took like a good 3 weeks breaks because I had to travel back to Dubai. And like Sarmeen said, people would say, "Oh, you're going to Dubai, that's a holiday." Because for British people, it is seen as a holiday, especially during Christmas, New Year time. But for me, it's not. I grew up there. It's my home. I'm going to see my family. So it's holiday in a way, but it's a different sense of holiday as such. So yeah, I think there are some services and other additional support, but I don't think I've accessed any. And like Sarmeen said, I've been people have told, oh, you should, maybe, like you could hear your colleagues or members in cohort being like, oh, I'm going to try and take a break in, second year or so, or whatever it is. And you're like, well, I can't afford to do that
Mm,
with anything else. And also the visa as well, just because of how the visa restrictions are,
sure.
and not
Yeah.
knowing if they would extend the visa in order to compensate for that break you're taking.
There might be some questions about that. I'm going to leave the students that have attended to ask some more questions if there are some.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly, but Abia,
Yeah,
you might have
Apple.
the second question as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a necessity to have like a driver's license and access to a vehicle while
So,
on the doctorate?
so this is a bit of a controversial topic because in the Manchester application process, they get you, for me at least, I don't know whether they've changed that, but for me, I had to show my driving license in the interview process. There was another international student also who applied who did not have a physical driving license at the time, but she was in the process of getting it. Um, yeah, and she did not end up getting a driving license, I think. So I have a driving license and I drive because I do need to drive to my placements and things like that. If I guess in the UK, depending on the location as well, like if you're applying if you're applying to like a London university, I don't think you need like you could just use the tube. Like, I don't think you need a car. But in Manchester, I think because of my placements, I prefer a car, so I've got a car. Ashna, I don't know whether your experiences are different.
So a bit different. So I do have a driver's license, and I think I didn't. So what I did was because I had a driver's license in Dubai, I could easily convert it to the UK license without having to apply or do another test. So I did that just for a namesake as such. So I have a driver's license now, but I don't drive. I've never driven in this country. And when it comes to placements, I've been specifically asking for placements which have public transport or can be reached via public transport. So luckily, my first placement is like that. It is long. I'm not saying you would act, if I had a car, I would be at my placement in like 30 minutes. But now, because I've taken public transport, it takes me an hour and a half or 2 hours to get there. But that's something that you kind of have to decide. And I know, like Sarmeen said, like for example, my friend who joined King's this year, she doesn't have a driving license, and because it's in London, they were like, well, use the tube or use the public transport that's available. And I think the university here as well do accommodate for that as much as they can. They, yes, understandably, when you're if there are other people who have more specific needs for any specific reasons, they will be given a priority. But me as an international student, and especially because that's just one of me, um, I was also maybe given that preference. And I think speak with it if you when you get onto it, speak with your tutor about how important that is and how difficult it would be. Because I know it's going to be really difficult for me to afford a car, and like with all the things that
Yeah,
come with it. So
exactly.
I've spoken about this very like in depth with my tutor, who has been kind of like speaking for me within those meetings as such, to be like, well, she can't afford it. You're going to have to give her a placement which gives public transport.
That's so right, isn't it? Because if you're getting paid every month, you can get a loan and you can buy a car with a loan. Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. Other questions from our student attendees? While you're having a think, can I ask another question? Because I was wondering, we started talking about, but not in any depth, why you chose to train in the UK rather than either at home or another country that might have different entry requirements or different fees.
I think so. I will say that I knew I didn't want to live in India. So because especially because I didn't grow up in India, and I've only been there on holidays. I knew that wasn't my path. And also just because of the nature of psychology in the country, and like how it's still a very developing field in the UK, in India, I was like, well, I can't think of how I could do that other than in India. And then in Dubai, there were restrictions, again, restrictions of being able to speak the local language, Arabic. And like you had to be very fluent in Arabic in order to start doing any PhD courses and things like that. So for me, the easiest was either the UK or the US or Australia, so like the English speaking countries, because even European countries, you have to be fluent in that particular country's language in order to get a license to practice afterwards, which I was like at like what was I, 23 when I was applying. I was like, I really don't think I can learn another new language in like less than a year's time to be able to practice fluently. So I chose one of the three English speaking countries, and I knew I didn't want to live in Australia. I was just like, that's too far. That's just does not sound like a place I want to live in. And I'm also scared of all the creatures that walk around there. But also America, or the US and Canada was like, so US and Canada, they don't have a doctorate. They have a PhD, which is like a 5 or 6 years course, and it is a bit more research focused as well. So I was like, well, I'm not interested in research, and I was again not interested in living in those countries as well. So UK kind of was my only other option. And I did want to live in the UK. Or at least I still do. But if that changes later on, that's not that's up to there. But yeah, so I wanted to live here, and I knew that I wanted to be more of a practicing psychologist rather than a researcher or an academic. So that's why I chose this, and also the fact that this is a 3 years course compared to the 5 or 6 years PhD that you have to do in the US.
And sorry, just out of interest, is that self-funded as well, the US one?
I I think some of them were self-funded, but some had some form of stipend given. I didn't. So the thing is, I only very briefly looked at it, and
Yeah,
because I knew I didn't want to go to the US. I was just like the political nature, and just the fact that it's so far away from home. I was like,
yeah.
I don't want to do that. So I didn't look much into it, but I know that some places do have some form of stipends being given. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
only my knowledge.
Thank you.
I may interject. I have because again, I have been sort of doing research as to what I want to do after I graduate from the undergrad. I have done some research on the doctorates in the US. You, even as an international student, you can get onto a funded program, but to work as a practicing psychologist, you need to get a license, and to get a license, you need to have a citizenship there.
Oh.
So yeah, it becomes quite inaccessible for international students to actually practice in the US, which is
Yeah.
why I eliminated that as an option. Because sure, you can get onto a funded program and maybe get a stipend.
Mm.
You have no sort of, you have to wait for the lottery system to get a green card and get a sponsorship there. And it's just a very long, winding, like bureaucratic process.
I think it's similar here as well, in that once you graduate, you have to immediately get a job and get a work visa. So you'll get a license, you'll get the HCPC license as you graduate, to my knowledge. But yeah, in order to work, you have to find someone who would sponsor you. Usually, NHS trusts do sponsor you, especially I know once you're in like a clinical psychologist or those kind of very registered roles, more trusts would be more open to sponsor you. So as an assistant psychologist, I know that very few trusts were wanted to sponsor. Like of all my friends who worked or have worked are working as assistant psychologists here, only one of them is sponsored, and that was because she chose to go to a very small village. It wasn't even a town, it's a little village there, and because they couldn't get anyone else, so she was lucky to get the sponsorship. But I know none of my other friends, including myself, got any sponsorship as an assistant psychologist. So
What are the implications for that, Ash? Does that mean that people have to work either outside of clinical psychology, or they have to work in different countries as an assistant psychologist?
Sorry, can I just add to that as well? Because I think now I'm applying for jobs now, so I sort of like
Mm.
like there's a few things there. Firstly, it's that yeah, you need to get the work visa. That would be the sort of like the ideal situation, that you get that work visa. And a lot of NHS trusts, they will sponsor it, because I think like clinical psychologist is the like sort of protected sort of like position, and they do want more clinical psychologists in services and stuff. The other one is that because we're on a student visa, there is the graduate visa that you can convert to, at least for me, because I haven't done that before, so I don't know whether Ashna, yours might be different, but for that you'd have to pay for the visa, so that's not ideal. You could try private companies, but then I think private companies will have to sponsor you as well. And so they might not be inclined to hire an international. But I have heard that in London, someone has done that from the decline. So it can happen. And then lastly as well, and not to be bleak and quite depressing with this entire conversation, it's that I have been in job fairs and like just talking to different employers and just like trust and everything. Because of the state of the NHS and like just the economy right now in the UK, a lot of the trusts are stopping their hires, and that means that clinical psychologist jobs are also being affected because of that. So that means that a lot of us on the course, not even international and locals, both of us, everyone is sort of feeling this sort of like there aren't any jobs, but at the same time you told us when we graduate we will have jobs. So there's a bit of like that disparity there that's going on. So just keep that in mind. And they have said that like at least for GMMH, it's like it's predicted that it's going to be in the next 2 years that it's going to be really hard to sort of like hire jobs and stuff. So I'm going to be qualifying at a great time.
thanks, because that 2 years is gonna be me.
Well, hopefully by that time you'll be fine, because by that point they'll have more fundings or something like that will change in the economy. But right now it's not great.
Yeah,
But
we've got another couple of years for the Labour government to get themselves sorted out, if they're going to. So you never know. You never know how it's going to be in a couple of years' time.
yeah, and so that will affect your assistant psych jobs as well, I imagine. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I did my unassistant role on a graduate visa. Uh, so I don't know how it's going to be if I can get another graduate visa once I finish my doctorate.
I think you might, I don't know, but you might have to look into it. But I heard like if you're doing a PhD, you can have a 3-year graduate visa.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
the
might be,
rule. I know that you can have that, but it's just because I've already had it once. I don't know how the rules are
yeah,
in or once I graduate. So because I'm in my first year, I'm just like I'm gonna hold that off because I don't want any other extra added
yeah.
emotional pressures that comes with.
Don't think about it till you have to. I
So
think
I'm just
that
like I'll just
yeah.
hold on to it and hope that something comes up or impress. I think that's one thing they keep saying, do really well in your placements, impress your supervisors because they might really would want you to come back. Some of them I know, like some of my so when I was working as an assistant, some of the new clinical psychologists or qualified clinical psychologists said the same thing, that they got a job because they worked in the service during their training and the supervisor was impressed and was like, we need a clinical psychologist anyway, and we're happy to hold that position for you when you're done with it. So that's there, but again, like, we don't want to sound bleak and we don't want you to not apply to the doctorate because of this, but do consider the other aspects that comes with being an international student.
I guess you're both planning on working in the UK afterwards, but you wouldn't have to. You could take your qualification somewhere else and work in a different country.
Yeah, you can. And so that's my sort of like predicament because I don't plan on settling in the UK. I know it's a bit controversial to say that, but I don't plan on staying in the UK and I do plan on going back to Singapore at some point or somewhere else. And that's the reason why I chose the UK to do my doctorate in. Australia does it, but I know the Australia and UK systems and even maybe the US systems, they're all very like
Mm.
anti each other. So like even if you're qualified in the UK to go and practice in Australia or in the US, you're gonna have to do some sort of like conversion stuff when you move there. But then in the other countries, I think it's all fine. So if you don't want to move to Australia or US or Canada, you should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right in that you can't practice with just a doctorate in the US. You need to have a PhD. So you have to get that. For some reason, they don't consider this decline as a PhD because it is technically a PhD equivalent, but it's not considered like that in the US, to my knowledge. So US is kind of out the window. And anyway, I don't want to live in that country. So my hope is to settle down in the UK if I can. But if understandably, if life throws a curveball and I'm just have to go somewhere else, it most probably will be back to Dubai is where, and that's another reason why I chose the UK because any post there, they when you look at their job applications or like what their requirements, they'll say a doctorate from the UK, US, Australia, Canada, kind of these four big countries.
So
So
that's definitely worth our international students considering, isn't it? But whether it's worth doing a UK doctorate if they're then planning on returning to home to their practice.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions from students? This is just such a good opportunity to ask all those things you've been wondering about.
Have any of you applied this year? Are you like all undergrads? And because I know that you do have to have some work experience before applying, but
I'm a final year undergrad, so I'm gonna be continuing at Manchester for my master's degree.
okay.
After that, I'm probably planning on getting uh the graduate visa and maybe hopefully looking for an AP role to get work experience.
Yeah, and that's another thing to consider. Assistant psychologist role are considered the gold standards, and they say that, but it doesn't mean you only have to get that experience in order to get into the course because a lot of my peers don't have an assistant psychologist job. They have had a PWP, so psychological well-being practitioners. Some come from social work, some come from teaching jobs, some come from journalism, some come from other like educational health. So EMHP, I think they're called educational mental health practitioners. And so while assistant psychologists are seen as like the job to have in order to get onto the doctorate, that is not actually true. So yes, while try and get an assistant psychologist role, but well, if you can, but it's not going to be an easy task. The number of assistant psychologist jobs are actually quite low in the UK. So look, keep your options open.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's also why I didn't apply for assistant psychologist roles in the UK, because when I was applying as well, it was that thing about like, because they will sort of not prioritize, but I think they would favor local applicants more at that time. I think because we didn't have the graduate visa. So maybe with the graduate visa things might change, but it was more of that like, why would they want to hire you over someone that's local? Kind of thing as well. So there's that to consider. And also I know now they're diversifying a lot of the like different ways that you can get on the course. So assistant psychologist jobs aren't the only way. There's PWP, there's like other courses that you can take where like a master's program. I've heard that there's like I'm not sure of the name, but there's like a master's program where you can master's program for an assistant psychologist role. And then you can
You
like
mean the CAP role, like clinical associate psychologist?
possibly, I think that.
Because that's a 2 years master's. Well, it's more like an apprentice. So you're studying 2 days and you're working in a placement for 3 days.
Yeah.
You could do that as well. But again, I think there is some limitations in that as an international student. I think so. I don't know how it is now, but for the first batch of CAPs, they had only in my service, only one of them was an international student, and she only could apply for it because she did her undergraduate, so she'd already been living in the country for 3 years before she could apply for that course because it's a paid course. So you get paid even as an international student, or at least she got paid. I don't know how it is now and
That's
what rules they've changed.
So that's a really good point, because some of those roles are funded by Health Education England, which is well, I don't think it's called Health Education England anymore, NHS anyway, which if you were able to get that funding, you'd be able to get the doctorate funding. So I think it's probably the same rules would apply for that. I think what I'm taking from this is you don't know what you don't know, and it's always worth checking out possibilities. That if you're not sure, check it out, I think. And locally as well, checking it out with local courses, with people that go on those courses, other international students. Okay. Before we let our trainees go, are there any other questions from our students? Okay. If I think just for the benefit of people that are watching this recorded, if you have other questions for our international trainees, if you email them to me, then I can collate them all together, and I can have a conversation with Sarmeen and Ash there, and we can think them through together, and we can get all the answers together into one sort of place on Blackboard for you, so that you can see the answers to the questions that you've given, but that the questions aren't repeated, and we're not bothering people in the depths of the doctorate with a whole load of questions. Because just to reiterate, it's not easy, and so I'm there with you. You're so desperate to get on it, aren't you? All the way through undergrad, you think, oh, I can't wait to do this. I'm desperate to get on. Then you get your assistant posts, yay! And then you get on the doctorate and think, that's fantastic, I've made it. And then you spend the next 3 years thinking, did I really want to do this? And then Sarmeen's probably at the best place, because she's now coming to the end of it and can can be reflecting on the journey. But I still bear the scars, but it was still, having said that, a fantastic thing to do. So it's a funny beast. If there's no more questions, no more last thoughts, I'd just like to say thank you so much for coming and talking to us. It's incredibly helpful, and we just wouldn't have got this information from anywhere else. And having your personal experiences as the backdrop for the information you've given us has just been so helpful and refreshing, so that we can all hear what you've needed to do in order to get to where you're at now. And good luck with the rest of your training, and hopefully stay in touch with you both.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to answer